Hi everyone, this is Celeste. I am in zone 9B and located in Northern California, if you haven't been to my channel before. And this is my 3-year-old succulent garden, or at least a portion of it. I have actually had the flu for the past week, and so have not been out in the yard, and we had a ton of storms that came through, and so I needed to do a little bit of cleanup. This is actually a great place in my yard to do that, especially when I'm not feeling very good, because I'm sitting most of the time. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll notice that the dog fence is gone, so I thought this was kind of a perfect time for me to walk through some of the things I was thinking about as I was doing the cleanup and redesign of some of the area here. This part of the yard is incredibly difficult for me to grow anything. I've mentioned that in a couple of videos, and it's super shady. But there's a reason why. It's because I kept this tree. It's the only tree that I actually kept in my yard, except for 2 desert museum trees that I planted later, which will get bright yellow flowers. But here is why I kept this tree. It's absolutely stunning. This is a tree that my father and my sons planted together when I first purchased the home about 14 years ago for Mother's Day. And this is my beautiful tree every single year. So it's just absolutely stunning. Just really, really love this. So I keep this. It's also really important during the summertime because this is something that this whole area gets super, super hot. Weirdly, I get very little sun over here, but it also gets super hot. So microclimates for you. But I will walk you through a little bit of what I did today. Again, apologies if I don't sound the greatest. I have not been feeling well for the past week. So let's get into it. This little area right here, this is all basically Bromeliad Central. This is because one of the shadiest parts. I also see some calla lilies. They're not necessarily something you want to plant next to succulents, especially if you have succulents that you've got in a sunny spot, for example, because calla lilies are not super excited about that. They tend to like a little damper conditions. But you'll notice it's inside of a pot, so I can actually keep that pretty controlled, and that actually helps to allow me to just kind of spot water it so that I can keep those calla lilies going. These bromeliads don't tend to color up too much. Sometimes I'll pop them out. One of the things about bromeliads that's interesting is that they're air plants, and so sometimes they will root, like this one has. This one has not. So you can kind of yank on them a little bit, and you can pop them up, take them into another part of the yard where they get a little more sun carefully. Don't, give them a bunch of sun too fast because they'll actually burn. But you can, move them, give them a little sun, let them color up, pop them back. So that's one of the tricks that I use in this particular area, just to kind of give it some color. I don't worry about it too much though. And the reason why is because, again, this is behind a chair. So it's not something that I'm too concerned with. It's also next to the little spot where the dog goes potty, or my dogs go potty. So it's not something that I'm too worried about. It's more just kind of keeping it looking nice and compact. So what I did is I went through, there's a lot of aeoniums in this area. So these are some just generic variety, blushing beauty, which I tend to use a lot just because they're extremely hardy. And just went in underneath and was pulling out all of the leaves so that I was making sure that there's no rot. That's the thing about aeoniums. You do have to go underneath. You do need to pull out those dead leaves. And the reason why is because that's what bugs like to get into. And you'll end up with your aeoniums all of a sudden dying on you. And the reason why is because the bugs will go after them. This right here, if it were in the sun, it's agavoides. That would be beet red. So, but you can see because it's in the shade, it's great. So this is just the things that I'm taking care of as I go through this particular area. I moved this pot over to here. Again, it's just something that I can fill easily with some aeoniums that can handle the fact that they're in a place that's super shady, and it's not a problem. I decided to experiment a little bit a couple years back with growing some of these bromeliads on the tree. So you can actually see this. right here. And that wire that you're seeing, that's just a fairy light that goes around and lights up at night. So those eventually just kind of glommed onto the tree and kept growing. So now there's a bunch of them, and they just keep throwing off babies. So I just either keep them with the parent, or I go ahead and pop them off and take them to some other place in the garden. And then again, they're variegated, some of them, like these up here. So they will actually color up pretty nicely. They get kind of a pink and white on them, which is really, really cool. Again, calla lilies, because they can handle a lot of the shade. You can see here, again, this part of the yard, it's just really hard to get succulents to grow in this area because it's so shady. So I'm always using a lot of aeoniums. That's why you're kind of seeing a lot of the repeat type of plants here. And that's because those aeoniums can handle being in, the shade area. The problem is that they are not going to color up very much. So some of these have been stressed. And what I mean by that is that I actually cut them. And in a previous video, I redid the front part of my yard. And when I did that, I actually just left the cuttings out. And they sat there for maybe a week and a half. And because of that, they started turning purple. And so that's why you see some of these have that color on them. So again, if you have a shady spot in your yard, you want to have some more color into it. Part of the way you can do that is by having cuttings. So stress the plants by cutting off the roots, and then that will actually cause the plants to start to color up like this. So in here, I'm just going through and I'm cleaning all of the leaves, and it's more aeoniums. I popped a pink witch, which is this pink and green and white one here in. It was in a different part of the yard, but it was super pretty. And I think a little bit of a pop of color next to this echeveria, which is starting to get bigger, is good. You can actually see there's some leaf damage on this echeveria. So some of that was because there was a little bit of hail that came through. And that's what happens to succulents when they get hit by hail. They just get a little damage. It's no big deal. They will grow out of that. So don't worry about that if your succulents get that. Also, if you're seeing some of these little brown spots, these are not bugs. This is just from the tree above. It drops this these little pellets everywhere. So it's just going to look like that for a little bit. But as I water, it will come off of all of the plants. So again, I was just going through and cleaning up as much as possible and trying not to kill myself here as I'm walking by these fish hooks, because they will do exactly like their name and hook onto you, especially my hair. For some reason, they like to do that, and then I end up dragging the whole pot with me everywhere. So just going through, and again, I'm just cleaning up, making sure that things that have fallen over are taken care of. These two right here, they're getting super leggy. So you can see, I just pop them off. I cut them like that, and then I just set them back down on top of the pot, and they will root probably within, I don't know, maybe a week and a half. That will start rooting, and probably within 3 weeks I won't even be able to pull those up. That's just how fast plants grow in my particular area. Here's the other side of that pot. And as you can see, I have a blue elf right here. And this one is just about ready to bloom. This gets these beautiful orange blooms. It's going to be absolutely amazing when that pops out. So a lot of these plants are starting to get more color. This is, again, a weird part of my yard because it stays so shady. But then there'll be part of the year where the sun's going to come in really harsh from the sides. And all of these plants will start to color up, so you can see a little bit of that starting to happen, especially with the sedums up there, graptopetalums. They're all starting to color up a little bit. There's more of the plants. And again, this one would be bright red. If it was actually in the sun, since it's not, it's just doing its happy little thing. It's only turning the tips red, and it'll stay green like that. But actually, here's a perfect example of what color it would be if it was stressed. So you can see this particular leaf fell off, and so that's how bright red these guys can get. So they kind of stay green towards the base right here, but they'll turn super, super bright red if you have them stressed, which this one is, obviously, because it broke off from the plant. But the other piece is that it'll, you know, if you cut the roots off, for example, or anything like that, or put it in the sun, then that will also cause it to get stressed out like that. More aeoniums. I was going to kind of cut this back, but I like it. I think it's kind of cute. And the reason why I didn't do it right now is because you can see right here I have a mangave sitting in there, probably pretty close to needing to be either moved because it's getting too big, or I have to do something with this pot and put it someplace else. This pot is too big to move, so decisions will have to be made about that pretty soon. But for right now, it looks okay, and I like the different textures. I think that's super cute with the softness, and then you have some of the spiky mangaves are kind of cool. Some of them are a little spikier than others. This one, not so much. I do not remember the name of this, but it's living its little best life here over in the corner, and seems to be doing just fine. I popped in couple of little plants. These are just cuttings. Again, these will continue to color up, so you can see they get all sorts of bright different colors in here, oranges and purples and things like that. They will continue to color up because once again you cut those roots off, you cut it off of the parent plant, then you're actually stressing it out, and so it's going to go ahead and it's going to give you some really, really beautiful colors. This guy got a pretty little bloom. These aren't exactly my favorite, but I really like the blooms. I think those are super cute, so I tend to keep those in the yard. And sunburst. This was one of the aloes from the front yard. Popped that in there. Thought that'd be super cute. And this little echeveria. I'm not sure what it's doing. I don't remember it being that like mottled color like that. And it's coming out kind of more like creamsicle here in the middle. So that might just be because of cold damage or maybe hail, things like that. But it's kind of cool. So I thought I would just go ahead and let that go. One thing that I will tell you is when I was actually redoing this pot, there used to be a piece that went up and there was a bigger pot that was up on the top, and it fell and it broke part of this plant. So when you have something like that happen, don't worry about it. Just take other plants and tuck it around. It's no big deal. You can just fill that part in. The plant will regenerate. It's no big deal. You just want to kind of make it pretty in the interim, and so that's what I did. I just popped in a bunch of those aeoniums again back there, which are super pretty. So I did have one bummer that happened. My aeonium cupcake got a death bloom. So you can see I beheaded it. And the reason I did that is because I want to force it to give me some babies. And I don't have another one of that. So that's not great. So hopefully having cut it that close down to the lower leaves, that will cause it to give me some of the babies. If not, I'll be on the hunt for aeonium cupcake here pretty soon. Aeonium poison. There's the Thonocapensis that I put in a lot of the pots. Super pretty, but also slightly invasive, so you just want to be careful when you're planting that. Oh, and another video, someone had commented and asked me, how do you propagate echeveria? That's That's a really hard thing to answer. There's so many different kinds. Some of them are okay if you take a leaf off of them. Remember, if you're going to take a leaf and you're going to try to propagate, you're going to go all the way to the base of the stem, and you're going to wiggle back and forth with that leaf until you're able to pop it off. And the reason why is because you have to have all of the leaf that's next to the base, that stem. It has to come off really cleanly. If it doesn't, then the leaf will just die. It actually needs the base part of the leaf, the part that's actually attached to the stem. So some of them you can propagate that way. The way that I do it, which is kind of a longer way to do it, but easier, is I wait until the plant actually gets a really long trunk. What they do over time is these leaves in the back will start dying off as these leaves in the front, they start coming out. And so what you do is you just wait. Over time, it'll get taller and taller and taller, kind of leggier looking. I don't like that. Some people are okay with that. They don't mind that stem. I don't like it. So I just wait until it gets to that point, and then I cut it off. And then I leave the stem. And the reason why is because the stem will usually give me babies. It'll give little tiny plantlets off of the stem itself. And then I can propagate those. And so typically I would cut the head off, you know, something like this. And then I would just put the plant right next to where the stem was. And that way I know that's the Echeveria that I took the head off from. And then when the babies come out, then I just move them someplace else. This is where the pot fell on me. So you can see there's a bunch of dirt. That'll go away as I water over the next, you know, month or two. Again, that's another one of those agavoides. Looks like it's about to do its blooming thing. I think it's super cute how it's hugging onto the rock here. And these guys, the thing that you have to be careful with them is it's not great to see it from this angle. You can see how it creates the babies from the bottom. Let me see if I go back here. You can see this a little better. But you see how it's got all these tiny babies under here? Well, they tend to pack like really, really, really tight. And so if you have a lot of water in your area, you want to check. This one is at an angle on purpose. Let me get back a little bit and maybe you can see the elevation and the way that it looks. But it's at an angle on purpose, and the reason why is because I want that water to drain off as fast as possible. Because these pack so tight, I've had them just rot from the base up, just because the water gets trapped in between all these little baby plants around here, and then that will cause it to rot. This one will actually end up turning red eventually, because once the sun changes its angle during the summertime, then this is one of the areas that will get blasted quite a bit more. And you may remember from one of my other videos, I had this aeonium right here. This aeonium, it's a Halloween crest. It broke off of the mother plant, and so I was debating what I was going to do with it, and I decided to put it in this pot. I used to have calla lilies in here, but for some reason this pot didn't grow very well. So I went ahead and I just popped it in there. So that'll be really beautiful. Halloween aeonium is one of the ones that colors quite a bit, and so it'll be really fun to watch that as that starts to grow. More bromeliads. So here you can see there's more sun, so you're getting some of that hot pink in the middle. That, believe it or not, that's the same as what was on the tree and under the tree a little earlier in the video. So, but you can see just that, you know, maybe, I don't know, 15 feet, and it's got that hot pink color versus the other side, which is completely green. Again, another one of the mangaves, starting to get bigger. These were tiny little plugs. I think they were maybe like 1-inch plugs when I bought them. So they're getting bigger now. Quite beautiful. Here's my favorite aeonium that I beheaded. So I'm waiting for that to give me babies. It still has one right here. But I want this parent to give me a baby. I took that one, and that's one of the ones that I put into the front yard. So in one of my other videos where I redid the front yard, you can actually see that. Didn't do much to this pot. It seems to just be living its good life here. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that for now. Back up a little bit so you can see what this looks like. Refresh some of the fire glass. It's in this cacti pot and stood it up straight. This guy likes to lean on me. I have to constantly rotate this pot. Oh, if you have a cactus or any plant that starts to lean, you can see it's kind of doing it a little bit. When they start to get a little tipsy like that, what you do is you just keep rotating the pot. What they're doing is they're stretching towards the sun. So just keep turning them away, right? Point them in the opposite direction and they'll actually right themselves. So then it's a little less of a hazardous way of doing it. I didn't have much patience today, so I just kind of pushed it and made sure that it did what I wanted it to do. But if you want to do it the slower way, you can just rotate the pot. There's another aeonium. It's absolutely stunning. I'll put my hand next to it so you can get an idea how big it is. Bigger than my hand. Absolutely beautiful. And I redid this little planter that my son gave me. It's my youngest son. He's always giving me stuff for the yard because he knows how much I love to be out here. And he's super cute. So I redid that today. More of the plants again. I forgot to mention earlier in the video too, I ran out of the black lava rock, so a little further on I'm going to show you how I'm going to actually change this one corner, and when I do that I will order more of the black lava rock, and then I'll fix some of the areas where, especially like where that dirt came in and things like that. But for now, it looks fine, especially cleaned up. Once you remove a lot of the leaves and you just kind of fluff up the rock a little bit, it starts looking nicer. And some jades, and aeoniums, more bromeliads. Again, you can see that colors coming in on those bromeliads, just being 15 feet away from under that tree. Another echeveria, actually two echeveria here. And again with these, this is the type, really, really hard to propagate from the leaves. Some of them do it, some of them don't. These kind of thinner leaves, I haven't had a lot of great luck with them, but I just wait until they get bigger. And you can see this one's starting to get taller. Stay there. It's getting there. So once it gets up to a certain height, you know, maybe, I don't know, I might let it to go to 2 inches or so. Then that's the point where I would go ahead and cut that off. And then I would just put it in the ground right next to it. And then I would leave that little stem. Most likely it will give me little baby plants. So here again, more aeoniums. Another one of the agavoides. It's redder, you can see. That was those ones I was talking about before that were green. This is one of my favorites. I always forget the name, but I think it's something like purple fingers or something. But I love it because it's purple. It's just really cool. I think the green and the purple is really cool. And the bigger jades at the back. And these pots, you'll notice a lot of these pots in this area, and that's because, again, it's an easy way to get height. Plus just, you know, give something for your eye to look at as you're looking at the overall design. Another sunburst aeonium. More of the Thonocapensis. Some fried eyes starting, so you can see some of the plants that I'm able to, that like more sun, I'm able to put over in this area because this will definitely be on the warmer side eventually. Another bummer. My Zeus aeonium is getting a death bloom. That's what that looks like. And death bloom means that this plant needs to give me babies because it's going to die. So aeoniums are monocarpic. That means that they only last for 2 years. But what happens is, as that death bloom starts, they will send out little babies, or usually they do off to the side. So I'm debating if I want to go ahead and just cut that off, or if I'm going to let it go. Probably let it go for just a little bit. But if I get close enough, you can actually see it almost looks like these little tiny yellow balls in there. That's the beginning of the flowers. So once it gets to that point, that's when the stalk starts to die. And the bad thing about those death blooms, while they're very pretty, and the bees love them, by the way, while they're very pretty, the problem is that it's going to put all its energy into those flowers rather than giving you babies. And so often that's why I will cut the head off, just so that I force the plant basically to focus on propagating and giving more babies. But I only have one of the Zeus aeoniums, so I'm going to need to make a decision here pretty quick. Otherwise, I'm going to be in the same situation as I am with that cupcake aeonium down there, where I'm going to have to be on the hunt for another one of those as well. I put a lot of jade in this part of the yard, and it was mainly because I just didn't know what I was going to do with it at the time. And I'll show you in a second part of what I plan to redo. This is actually a solar water fountain. Right now it is extremely overcast, and so it's not going off, but there's a ton of water in there, and so normally that has like a little water fountain going. But I'm going to be removing that and removing this giant mess of plants and this tree out of here. So the tree's in a pot, which is good, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to move that. But what I want to do is bring in a huge ton of soil, and I'll do this in another video, where I'm just basically going to rip all of this out. I'll bring in a bunch of soil, mound like crazy. I'll take some of these bigger rocks, I'll get the same type of big rocks like this, these orange ones, and I will use that to brace that mound so that it doesn't just fall apart, basically. And then I bought this really beautiful, looks like a driftwood fountain that I'm going to put at the top, and then I will plant the plants all around it. So it'll be really cool when you come in the backyard. It'll kind of be become a focal point, and it will make some ambient noise too. So when my neighbor's kids are playing or things like that, I won't necessarily be listening to all of my neighbors as they're hanging out in their yards. One thing I did want to show you is this aeonium. This one I found on accident on Etsy. It's huge. I don't know if you can, like, here's my hand. It's big, super big. It's called Octo 8, and it's a monster. It's probably about 4 feet tall right now, so you can see this guy. And that's the way they grow, these really, really tall stems. What I haven't figured out yet with these is, how do you propagate? So I had one over here that fell down. I had to prop it up, you can see with the little rocks right there. So it's doing its best to try to grow, but I'm thinking about, if I get brave, I will chop its head off and then see what happens. See if I end up getting some more babies out of there. So that's as far as I got today. Again, still kind of recovering from the flu, and I don't want to push it. So I'm trying to give my body a little bit of a break. But that is a little tour of a small little section of my succulent and cacti garden. As always, if you find these videos helpful or useful, please leave comments. I love hearing from folks from all over the world. It's really exciting to share this hobby with fellow enthusiasts. And please like and subscribe. I hope you're having a great weekend. Thanks. Bye.